One of the most fascinating things about the Partridge Family is that, decades later, people still feel deeply connected to it. When performers appear in people's living rooms week after week, that bond becomes intimate and lasting. At 73, Susan Dey is finally confronting a truth she kept buried for most of her life, a truth tied to a single night with David Cassidy that she now considers one of her deepest regrets. For years, fans believed their on-screen chemistry was nothing more than harmless television magic. Behind the scenes, however, one impulsive decision reshaped everything, leading not to romance, but to heartbreak, distance, and a silence that endured for decades. Susan Dey was born on December 10, 1952, in Pekin, Illinois, to Ruth, a devoted nurse, and Robert, a steady presence in her early life. Her childhood was marked by loss when she was just 8 years old and her mother passed away. That grief followed her quietly for years, shaping her emotional world long before fame entered her life. After her mother's death, Susan moved to New York, attending Columbus Elementary School in Thornwood, and later Fox Lane High School in Mount Kisco. By the time she graduated in 1970, she was reserved, resilient, and already carrying emotional weight far beyond her age. Her path into entertainment began through modeling rather than acting. One of her earliest appearances was on the cover of an educational booklet for young girls titled Getting to Know Yourself. It was a small opportunity, but it opened a door. At just 17, with no formal acting experience, she was cast as Laurie Partridge in The Partridge Family. Overnight, she became a familiar face in American households. While audiences saw a confident, charming teenager, behind the scenes Susan was learning how to navigate fame, performance, and constant public attention while still trying to understand herself. After the show ended in 1974, she briefly returned to the Partridge universe by voicing Laurie in the animated spin-off, The Partridge Family 2200 AD, though her involvement lasted only 2 episodes. In 1977, she took on a co-leading role in the short-lived sitcom Loves Me, Loves Me Not, a reminder that she was still searching for her place in an industry that had discovered her too young and reshaped her too quickly. During the height of the Partridge Family, Susan shared the screen with David Cassidy, who played her older brother Keith. While their characters were siblings, real life was far more complicated. David Cassidy was already a teen idol, adored by millions, while Susan quietly developed deep feelings for him. Those feelings were never returned. David saw her as a younger sister, someone he cared for and protected, but not someone he viewed romantically. So, cast members noticed the imbalance, including Shirley Jones, who played the family matriarch and was also David's real-life stepmother. She warned Susan gently, aware of how guarded David could be and how easily heartbreak could follow. As the show came to an end, David asked Susan to dinner, hoping to clear lingering emotions. They spent hours talking, sharing fears about life after fame and the uncertainty of what came next. Later, he invited her to a quiet retreat in Rancho, California. There, Susan made her feelings unmistakably clear. David cared for her but did not feel the same depth of attraction. Still, unwilling to hurt her outright, the situation drifted into an intimate moment that felt tender but uneasy. By morning, both sensed that something had been lost rather than gained. After that night, their closeness faded. They remained in contact for a time, but the easy friendship they once shared never returned. Years later, in 1990, they appeared together at the MTV Video Music Awards, offering fans a brief glimpse of warmth and nostalgia. Yet privately, the emotional distance remained. In 1994, David Cassidy published his memoir, Come On, Get Happy. In it, he wrote candidly about his struggles with addiction, fame, and family, and included details about his brief romantic encounter with Susan. For her, reading those pages felt like a violation. She had kept that moment private, unresolved, and deeply personal. Seeing it exposed publicly reopened old wounds. Though David later reached out with a letter, Susan never responded. Whatever bond they once had already dissolved. Susan gradually stepped away from her Partridge Family past, declining reunion invitations and documentary appearances. Her career, however, continued to evolve. She took on darker, more demanding roles including Mary Jane Harper Cried Last Night, First Love, Looker, and Echo Park, performances that revealed a depth far removed from her early sitcom image. Her defining role came in 1986 as Grace Van Owen on L.A.E. Law, earning her a Golden Globe and multiple Emmy nominations. The character embodied strength, intelligence, and emotional complexity, qualities Susan herself had quietly cultivated over years of personal struggle. Off-screen, Susan's life included both joy and hardship. She married, became a mother, and later found stability in a quieter life. She also faced private battles, including an eating disorder during her early fame. Over time, she transformed pain into purpose, becoming an advocate for survivors of sexual assault and serving on the board of the UCLA Rape Treatment Center. Looking back, the brief, fragile connection with David Cassidy remains a turning point in her life. What began as youthful hope ended in silent regret, shaping how she viewed intimacy, trust, and fame. At 73, Susan Dey's story stands not as a tale of scandal, but as a reflection on vulnerability, restraint, and the quiet cost of growing up in the spotlight.